All right. So looks like the stream is working. So growing pains because it's been a while and new software, and I'm not really sure how I configured all this and tested it. I get it to work. Anyway, I am Alex. Welcome. This is a something that I wanted to do for a long time, but just kept putting it off, kept saying, "Oh, like there'll be a better time, better day to do it, better planning." And somebody the other day told me just basically just do it. And so here I am. I'm going to kind of figure this out as I go along. But the goal is to talk about AI and how we can use AI for software development. And more importantly, like some of the things that make my blood boil that I think like we can fix pretty easily. Um, so put together a quick presentation here. I didn't want to use slides on purpose, so we'll see how interactive this is. But it's been a while for me, so hopefully this will work okay. So again, welcome. So this is hopefully a weekly stream that I'm going to do, talking about different topics on AI software development that I think can help those who aren't technical in nature. So with Claude Code and Cursor and all of these different tools that we have available to us now, one of the things that we can do is just basically put together software without having a developer, without, paying somebody to do that work. And there are a lot of people out there that are making all kinds of applications, web applications, mobile applications. And some of this is successful and some of this is a dumpster fire. And so I'm going to look at the landscape today and kind of just provide my opinion and thoughts on where I think things could improve and what I think this channel in particular can help people with. So let me introduce myself in a bit more detail. So who am I? My name is Alex. I've been a software developer for over 30 years. I think it's closer like 36 or 37 at this point. I've also been a technical instructor for at least 20 years. And I am a cybersecurity professional as well. So I've had a pretty interesting career, and I've worked for a lot of different companies. And I've grabbed some logos and put them here for the sake of just kind of explaining where it is that I come from. I think the roles that we have shape our knowledge and how we work. And so each one of these companies had something have done something for me that shaped the way I think about software and do that kind of work. So I do in most of these jobs, I have been a software developer, except for Intel, which was more of a marketing job. It was early on in my career, but working at Intel, I met a coworker of mine was an instructor, and he taught at Bergen Community College. And one day he needed, or the college needed somebody to teach a web course, and he knew I did web development and software development, so he recommended me, and I was kind of like just baffled because public speaking was never my thing, and standing in front of a crowd of 20 people and trying to explain something to them was also something that I couldn't really understand or comprehend. And what ended up happening is I took this assignment and I was a nervous wreck. And I went in and I taught this 6-hour course, and I loved it. Not only did I love it, but I did well. I was able to explain the subject matter, and I was able to answer the students' questions, and I was able to take them through the example that they had to do, and basically the rest is history. And so I spent 13 years teaching at Bergen Community College. This is in New Jersey, face to face. I also, around the same time, worked at Rutgers University, also in New Jersey. And I taught Android development at County College of Morris, also in New Jersey. Eventually, I packed it up and moved to Nevada. And when I got to Nevada, I taught at these two colleges, which is College of Southern Nevada and UNLV. And again, everything that I've ever taught was a technical topic to basically people who weren't in IT. So I taught back in the day, like in the 90s, it was the uh, web 1.0 boom. And so things like e-commerce, classic ASP, ASP.NET, Microsoft Access databases, Visual Basic Script, Excel and PowerPoint and Photoshop and different web tools. Believe it or not, I taught Microsoft Front Page. So things like that. And then, obviously over the years, all of that changed. And eventually I was teaching Android and I was teaching cloud computing and all kinds of other things by the time I ended up at UNLV. And I've worked in a lot of different sectors, right? I worked at Fortune 500 companies. So we have like, Intel and PepsiCo. I was a software developer at PepsiCo. And in fact, most of these, I was a software developer, except for this job where I was a chief information security officer. And then I am a CTO at TCM Security, and it's a CISO for its parent company as well right now. All fantastic jobs. Every one of them, I am proud of achieving something at each one of them. I've spent time at many of them. Like I didn't really jump from one place to the next to the next. So, for example, I spent 10 years at Greenwich Associates. I was getting ready to have a very long career over at Gen Re, which is a fintech company, but in insurance space. But TCM called, and I had to answer that call. So, but overall, that is sort of my background, and that background, like I said, shapes the way I look at software development, the way I look at customer service, the way I build things, and the way I think about the current environment that we're in and the things that, the cool things that we can do with AI today. Now, on top of all of this, I do have courses out there today. I have roughly, I think it's 15 courses on Pluralsight. I have a course on Dome Train, and I'm working on my second course for them as well. And I have a course on the TCM Academy, which is a C# course for hackers. I also help run a podcast for a client who he's been a client for so long, he turned into a friend. And so Rich Weil and I, who runs the Transformation Weight Control Program, do a podcast. We haven't started this season yet, but we will. We have some plans for that later in the year. But if you're interested in learning about weight loss, I've even done that. So that's the Transformation Weight Control podcast. And I've also been a consultant or self-employed or solopreneur, whatever you want to call me, since May of '93. Started a company called Left to My Own Devices Computer Solutions, and that's what I've been doing for 33 years now. It started on May 7th, 1993, so I just celebrated a 33rd anniversary there. Now, the company obviously changed a number of different ways since '93. So, for example, in '93, I put together computers for basically built PC clones and sold them to offices and things like that. And then little by little, I went more into building software and being a web developer and webmaster for small, and I mean really small businesses. to some degree, I have some success there because I have customers that have been with me for over 20 years at this point, and it's interesting to see, that evolution. And I was a bit critical of AI up until about 6 months ago, more like really August of last year. And I remember working on a project in March of 25 for the podcast up here. And, Cursor and Claude, they weren't great. They did some things right, but they also got many, many things wrong. And it was very difficult to get them to cooperate and do exactly the thing I want them to do. But in August of 25, Opus, I believe, Claude Opus came out, and Cursor introduced a planning mode. And those two things allowed me to really um, revamp how I think about software and ship a number of different things. So, for example, I've built two web applications. These applications have been on my to-do list for a couple of years now. I just never had the time to go do them. And then when their time came, I actually knocked them out in very at a very fast pace. I also created a mobile app, and that mobile app I can't really talk about. It's not mine, but it's out there and it works. And the key thing about that is I'm not a mobile developer. Like I've built mobile apps on the Android platform 10 years ago, but I really haven't built anything in mobile space since then. And here I am working in Flutter and Dart, and building things that aren't only for Android but for iOS as well. And there are also tools that I built for myself. So, for example, some of you may know like Windows Power Toys, right? And Power Toys uses shortcut keys for pretty much every action that you can imagine, right? So anything that you want to do, like if you want to draw on the screen, there's a shortcut key for that. I have to say, as from being an instructor, you never get a chance to use shortcut keys. The problem with that is students can't see if you do, Control C, Control V. They're like, "Huh? What did you do?" And so I've always been used to going into the menus and actually clicking the different options. Power Toys doesn't really have that. So what I did is took the source code and built my own version of that, which has a standalone menu. And this allows me to do all kinds of things. Not only can I choose any of the options that I built in for that are built into Power Toys, but I added my own. So for example, the way the arrow works, I never cared for the point being dragged out from the back, and so I reversed it. So now when I draw, the point is forward instead of in reverse. I also love this pointing mean, which you'll see me use, throughout. And so what I did is I incorporated that as a pointer. And not only that, but I can actually do a quick copy and paste of that. So I have them ready on my clipboard, and I also have the other half of that meme. So that's covered. And this is a totally custom tool. I can change the tips here for my arrows and really just present the way I want without it being all driven by shortcuts. I have that menu. I can just choose my options, click one or two shortcuts, and I'm off. I'm off to the races. So I think there's a big case for being able to put together tools that you can work on yourself. That's way too thick. Yeah. So like this, I think is a big category, and I think it's an interesting category as well. Um, so right now, I am using AI to work on a large scale web application, and I'm also working on two what I call micro learning mobile apps. And again, amazing stuff. I'm getting it done faster, and I'm working with languages and technologies that, as a developer, across like all of this stuff that I've done in all of these places that I haven't really experienced. Like plenty of technology that I've never used or worked with that I'm now incorporating and working with efficiently with the use of AI. And so that's, I think, gives the ability for people to really kind of do anything they want. So if you have an idea for an application, whether it's a mobile app or a web app, I think anybody has the ability to build that today. But I think, as you'll see, we do have some problems that we need to solve first. And so I'm hoping to help people solve some of those problems. So let's take a look at what some of that might be. All right, so the why. So I troll the vibe coding forum on Reddit, and I laugh and I cry all the time by seeing stuff like this. So here's a post where it says, "Hey, just search for Open AI API key on GitHub," um, and so what that means is vibe coders, those of us who actually check stuff into Git will check in our secrets into Git and make them publicly available. And so somebody else takes that API key and then uses it, and that's a security problem, security issue. So you're losing money on that. But that's not like the saddest part. The saddest part is that you know, sorry, no, like if you're a vibe coder, you're probably not using Git. And that's another very fair point that I've seen a couple of times. I have a couple of friends, and some of them are working on applications, and I know one of them lost all of his work because he created a prompt that really didn't generate what he wanted it to generate, and he was never able to kind of reverse it back to a point where his code was usable again. And so he spent like a week or 2 weeks working on something, and then one wrong move, the one big hallucination, and everything is destroyed, and you have a really difficult time getting back to a good working state again. And Git is something that would help you solve that problem. Like, it's a source control, and it allows us to get back to a good working state, assuming we saved a good working state. So that's obviously one thing. So, like, why not learn some good coding practices and make your workflow a little bit more efficient? Another one is this, and this one basically is like, people start projects, they hit a wall, they're not sure how to solve it. And so those projects just end up floating out there. So this meme is a perfect example of that, right? You have 6 or 7 of these unfinished things that might be great ideas, but you're not sure how to get them to that next level. Or you've got them working on your machine, but you realize that getting that to production is nearly impossible. Like, that barrier between, hey, it works in my environment versus, hey, it works for everybody, can be huge. And so that's another thing. And then there's this guy. So for anybody who's interested, this is a video on Starter Story. So definitely I would subscribe to that channel and check out this video in whole. But I've got like a couple of quick clips here that I'm going to play that kind of, I have some stuff to say about. So let me turn on the volume. Hopefully that'll work.
Create things. I don't check my emails. I don't check customer support, because sometimes you read an email that something is broken in my app and I have to fix it. If that happens at the beginning of the day, then I'll fix this bug instead of actually working on what truly matters for me, which is creating more stuff.
All right. And so that's a problem for me, right? So he basically has a customer. Somebody paid him money for software that he built, and he's basically saying that, well, like, that's great. Like, now that I've gotten your money, like, tough luck if it doesn't work the way you expect it to. So there might be bugs. I can guarantee that anything that we release as software has bugs in it. Like, there doesn't matter if it's done professionally, if it's done through AI, it's going to have issues. But you have to be able to support and work with your customers to make sure that they have what they need. Like, that's just the fundamental thing of IT. And I think all of us, whether we're vibe coding or professional software developers, need to take that seriously. That needs to be something that developers adhere to. Like, you have to support your customers, because what if that person is you? You paid somebody $120 for a subscription for an app. That app doesn't work, and now you send an email and you get nothing back. That's not great. All right. And then there's this same video.
I shipped about 35 startups, and on those 35, 30 of them are nothing. They don't work. They barely don't make any money. They barely don't have any users. So the hit rate is about 5%. So if you want to roll the dice once and stick.
So he built 35 different applications. And out of those 35 applications, he's got 5 that survived and 30 that died. And they probably died for various reasons, right? So some of them, like he said, maybe don't work. That's a problem. Some of them maybe don't have users. That's a different issue, but I'm assuming it's more than that. So if you're shipping every week or every day and you're creating something and getting it out the door, I think that's great. I wish I could do that too. But I do think that software is something that you've created. It's something that you want to be proud of, something that you want to show off to your friends. You want to be able to kind of look at it like, like, this is cool. Like, the UI is just right. The feature that I was working on does exactly what I wanted to do. It's intuitive, it looks good, and it works the way I expected. And so I suspect that some of the problems that he's running into is not so much that he doesn't have customers for a given app. It's just that the app is crap, and it's not going to make any money, and so it just kind of wasted effort, right? Like, he maybe spent a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is, and it kind of died. But it's also sad to think that out of those 30 that died, that they had paying customers that lost money with that, right? And so I think you have to take responsibility for the things that you create. So if you're going to write software, I think you want to, at the very least, either release it for free, during like a beta or something, until it's stable, until it works and that it's viable, or not charge at all, right? But you need to be able to, if you're going to shut it down a month later because your infrastructure bill is too high or it's too buggy and you can't fix it, like, those things are a problem. And I think, again, like, those are the kinds of things that I can help. I can help that guy and many others solve. All right. So what are we talking about? Like, why is that a problem? Like, so what, right? Somebody wrote 35 apps and only 5 survived. Like, why is this an issue? Well, first of all, AI is not free, right? And AI is getting more and more expensive every day. So we're looking at higher and higher subscription fees with less and less tokens to use. And the AI companies want you to burn through the tokens, right? They want you to use that usage. It looks good on their books. And I get it. Like, startups fail. Fail for a number of different reasons, but, like, these shouldn't be the reasons, right? Like, you shouldn't have unhappy customers. Like that shouldn't be a reason why you fail. I've seen this one way too many times on Reddit, right? Just last week, there was somebody complaining that Claude deleted their production database along with their users. It did not look like this person had a backup. So I'm assuming, like, they lost some stuff, like, and some of those customers are out of luck. Then there's the pattern of, you launch something and it's great and it actually works, but then you get the bill for it and you realize that the app that brought in $25 cost you $600 or $700 in AWS or Microsoft Azure fees. Like, why? And all of these things, are addressable. Like this one as well. Like you have bugs that AI can't seem to fix. Like you give it one thing, it'll write some code, you test it, something else is broken, you tell it to fix it, it fixes the other thing, and the first thing comes back and is broken again. And you end up in that cycle of trying to forever repeat and fix that that bug. And so in my book, these are, simple things. So so your problems here. Sorry, just moving my desk around a little bit. So the poor customer support. So this one is poor customer support, right? Like you have to support your customers. Like that's a kind of a contract that you enter with. The moment they pay you, you need to help them. Here, this second one is really poor development practices. Oops, sorry. Yeah, so this second one here is poor development practices. This third one is poor architecture, right? Because it doesn't have to be a $600 or $700 bill. You could fix these problems in a number of different ways. You just have to know which tools to use. And if you didn't interrogate the AI that built it, then you went with the default recommendation. And yeah, absolutely, it's going to use a lot of services that are costly. And then the unfixable issues is just, poor code, right? It's AI slop. So you have your spaghetti code that you can't really unwind. And you can, well, it's guaranteed that eventually it becomes unsupportable. Like there's no scenario where spaghetti code lives. Sooner or later, it becomes, impossible to deal with. So the other big thing I think is that our window of opportunity is shrinking. So AI is pretty heavily subsidized. So if you look at any of the companies, they're not really making money. They're popular, and a lot of people are using them, but they're not really making money. And so eventually, what historically has always happened is that prices creep up, and then eventually it becomes important for them to only work with the enterprise customers who are going to buy 150,000, 200,000 worth of AI usage every month. Like I worked for a company that had $1 million spend a month in Microsoft Azure. Like that's insane, right? But they do it, and to them it's cheaper than having their own data centers. And so we get to those points, and what happens is, to the consumer side of things, it becomes dumb and it becomes less and less useful for us. So we're in this weird window where we still have these tools and we could work with them, but I think the prices are increasing. You've already seen, like, some features of Claude have gone to the max plan, so you have to spend at least $100 a month. Some features in Cursor, for example, are also only on the higher tier. Copilot is now pay as you go, and again, like the costs are going up. So I think we'll see that over over the next 18 to 24 months, things will get more and more expensive, and there'll be more and more scrutiny around the services. And, a lot of that, I think, is also because of the environmental impact. And so it's not necessarily about using all of the different resources like water and, electricity and all these different things, but it's also about, the fact that there aren't enough data centers to deal with all of this. And in order to really make this efficient and deal with it, like OpenAI is about to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure. So, like, how do you recoup $1 trillion? Like, that's a very difficult thing. So, I think, like I said, our window of opportunity is shrinking. Also, AI slop causes a lot of issues for our users, right? We're becoming less and less. We're becoming less and less interested in looking at different software, and that's a shame because I think there's still good products out there that are worth looking at and working with. So I don't want this to happen. I think we're seeing some poor experiences, and that's just because the UI isn't well thought out. Some features are missing that would make it more intuitive, and again, this all leads back to that customer dissatisfaction in software. And of course, there's security risks. Like I could, buy an app, put my data in it, and then turns out that like all that stuff is publicly available on the internet. Um, we could, we also have issues like this. Like this was from Reddit. And so here, this person burned through all of their allocations and they can't do anything for the next 20 hours. So this is an efficiency thing. Like, how much information do you feed to Cursor or Claude and still maintain some kind of control over how much you're spending? Again, I've done enough work with it that I kind of understand where these things are now, but I don't think everybody does. Like, really, I guess maybe Netflix is the answer. So the other big problem, right? And I think this is where, AI is great. AI is great at, getting us to write software quicker. And we're kind of thinking about this in a different way. But let's just assume that, before AI was around, like these are the 4 steps for us to build a software package. Like if we were going to build something, if we were going to build a piece of software, we had to go through step 1, then step 2, then step 3, and step 4. Whatever those steps are, does not matter. And to do all of those steps, we had developers. So we have like a crew over here that work on, this stack, right? Whatever it is. And they get all this work done, and life is good. Now, after AI, right, things change a little bit. And you would think that, now you have one person and you have AI, and AI replaces those other 2 guys. Maybe. I don't necessarily agree with that. I tend to think that you still have the 3 guys, and each one is using AI, and each one can deliver more and more quality rather than cut the team down to one person and one AI in order to compensate that. Like I don't think the savings is there. But the problem with all this is that, the way we build software hasn't changed. It has not changed one bit. So if before AI, we had to go through these 4 steps to build the software, now that we have AI, we still have to go through these 4 steps to build the software. We didn't change the fundamentals of software building. We didn't change the software development lifecycle. We didn't change the architecture patterns, the design patterns, the things that make good software are still identical today. It's just that we changed who built it. So before we had, the 3 guys, and now we have this crew, but before and after, same exact software, same exact rules apply. And I don't think a lot of people see that or understand that or even want to consider that. So I think there's a couple of different paths. Like, we had a software developer at one point, and now this kind of, veered off. Like originally, I don't think anybody on the consumer side would just like pick up and say, "Oh, I'm going to write a mobile app." Like, you'd hire somebody. Now that we have AI, we have this new path for people who are not technical to build software. The AI engineer, my thoughts around this is that this is a person like me at this point. They've accepted the fact that they're going to write less code. They've accepted the fact that they have to level themselves up and work with architecture and work with making sure that the code that's delivered back to them is good and clean, and make sure that it fits into those buckets, those 4 areas or 5 areas or whatever you want to call, that makes up good software. And that's what your AI engineer does. And so when they build things, you kind of end up in this place. All right. So the vibe coder built something that has a largely unknown code base. It's full reliance on AI. So you don't know if the code is right, if it's wrong, if it's spaghetti, whatever it is, it is. As long as it works, it ships, right? Um, and that's like kind of setting you up for failure right out of the gate. Now, the AI engineer who followed the patterns, realized that, gee, like I'm now building this faster. And like I built 2 web applications, relatively large ones, incredibly fast. Um, not something I could have ever done on my own. And, like while I was working on those projects, I learned new patterns and new techniques and new technologies. I took a relatively old and uh, I wouldn't say broken. The app worked, but I would say like very kind of an old school app, and I was able to convert it to an enterprise architecture with queues and services and all kinds of bells and whistles that really make it work and stand out. And I have like multiple clients on it, and everything works, and everything works the way I expect it to. If somebody has a bug, and people have reported bugs, I can go in there and I can find it and I can fix it, or AI can go in and find it and fix it. And I understand what it's doing in that software and how it's working, and where even to look for problems. Like in this case, you may not be able to even figure out where the problem is. So I think those are kind of like the 2 paths that we have here. And a lot of what we think of as AI is not really AI, right? Like I read this book recently. It's called The Common Sense Guide to AI Engineering by uh, Jay Wengrow. And so, Jay basically, in very plain English, explains how all this stuff works. And one of the things that he talks about is statistical next word predictor, which is what your AI agents are. And how they work is essentially they look at the data provided. So in this case, the cat sat on and then this is the possible next token, floor, roof, or mat. Mat has the higher statistical probability. So that's the word it's going to choose next. So these large language models that we use, like Claude, like the models that are found in Cursor or ChatGPT, they work kind of like the predictive text on our phone, but are trained on huge volumes of data. So the chances of them getting something right are pretty good. They're not 100%, but they're pretty good. And then the other concept here is chain of thought. And this is a technique that allows an AI model to break the problem down into smaller problems solve those individual problems, and then get you the answer. So a simple example here, like technically an LLM is awful at math because it would have to be trained on the exact math problem that you're trying to solve. And chances are it wouldn't have that, but it might have subsections of that problem, right? So like, once it reads this question and uses that as context, it knows that, hey, you're starting out with 5 balls. And then you know that 2 cans have 3 balls each, which is 6 new balls. So I'm assuming it's talking about tennis balls. And then it knows that, the 5 and the 6 added together is 11. And that's how it comes up with the answer. So it doesn't really have an answer to this initial problem. Like it doesn't really understand this, but by the time it breaks it down, it's able to statistically guess the answer based on the data that it has. So I think those are important concepts, because what we're kind of doing is we're using this AI, and we think it thinks, but it really doesn't. And it doesn't even remember what it did for you 10 minutes ago, and it has no idea for sure what it did for you in a different chat a day ago. And every time it looks at your code base, even though you've been working on it for a week, it's always a new code base. Like it never remembers anything that it did before. So it has to kind of go back and relearn. And so context, the information that we give it in order to achieve what we want, is very important. So I think some of that boils down to rules and skills and the proper way of building software. So if you build software that it doesn't have any rules or guardrails for AI, that's just like build me this. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what stack you use. Just build it. You kind of end up with this hodgepodge of things. Everything is cobbled together, and maybe you have a bunch of different features that require first and last name, right? So you have a database table for users, and that's where you store the first name and last name. And AI writes you a method, says for feature 1, like we're going to write a method get user. Because it doesn't remember anything about get user the next day, you say, hey, I want to show the first name and last name on this second feature. And so now it goes off and it creates, a second user too. And then finally, like day 3, again, you're working on a feature, you realize you need the name. You don't tell AI to find and reuse code if it can. So it goes off and it builds a third one. And at the end of the day, you end up with this mess of an architecture, which doesn't really, help in any way. Like it becomes more and more difficult for you to solve your problems, because at some point you're going to say, hey, I want to include a middle initial here. And you will have to go through every iteration of this get user prompt in order to add that middle name. So like feature 1 will have it, but feature 2 won't. And the goal always of software development is to reuse the code that you've already written. So the ideal scenario is something like this, where you have one method that goes and gets the user information, and it's applicable to all 3 features. And if you need to make a change and inject the middle name, you do it here in this one spot, and that shows up across all 3 of them. And you can then break down your application into different layers. And so there's a concept of boundaries and responsibilities within each layer. So for example, maybe you have one layer of your application that deals with database only, and another one with infrastructure, and another one with business logic, and finally you have the client. And they all talk to one another in a particular way and order, but not everything is cobbled together in one place. And even at the database level, you break things down into smaller and smaller problems, just like we saw here, with the chain of thought. And you can get AI to really then understand how your code base works, reuse the things that you've written, which reduces your cost, reduces the context, reduces the size of your code base, and a number of, has a number of other benefits. And you end up with quality software that you can ship and maintain and support. And so how would you know to get to this state, right? Like, do you need to learn computer science? Do you need to learn how to code? Like, what gets you this skill, right? Yep. And so I think you don't need to be a software developer anymore. Like, you don't need to learn how to code. I've written now at least one application in a language I don't know of at all. In fact, even like this Zoom It, this thing that I'm using right here, this is written in C++. And I haven't touched C++ since the 90s. And yet I was able to, write this software that is very functional, very useful for me, without, much effort at all. Like, I think all the features that I put into this, all the effort that I invested in it is maybe less than an hour. So my thoughts around that is that we can use AI as a decision maker. So if you aren't sure about what architecture to use, what software stack to use, how things should be put together, it is easy enough to talk to your AI counterpart and get that information from them. Now, this basically goes back to everything from figuring out what the best stack is. So, you pick the right language, you pick the right database, you pick the right platform for deploying this, whether that's AWS or Azure or something else. You decide on the features that you're going to purchase. So, for example, which database are you going to buy, and what's the cost of that database, and can we do that cheaper? Like, what would be the alternative? Like, you have the capabilities to work with AI and sort out those decisions. The next big thing that it does for us is, I think, as a builder or an accelerator, right? Like, I wrote an application in about a month's time that would have taken me probably 6 months to write. And not only that, but it's got a really nice UI. It has really solid functionality. It's enterprise grade architecture. It works incredibly well. Everybody's really happy with it. And, again, like something like that, I couldn't have written in a short amount of time, working in, a couple of hours in my weekends and evening time, just no way. But with AI, I was able to do that. And the last thing is, we could use it as a collaborator. And so this is, we can ask it questions. We can figure out, not only the marketing, but we can get it to explain complex things to us in an easier way, so we can make the decisions for it. And that, is the next big thing, right? Like, human in the loop. It's not that AI is writing software and you're letting it do everything and you're not monitoring what's going on. It's important to be that person and control the AI agent to make sure that it's doing things the way you want them done. And so you do have to learn some basics. There are some tools, like Git and some IDEs. And again, like, the IDEs are now Visual Studio Code, or the Cursor IDE, which is still Visual Studio Code. You don't have to learn a great deal about them. You don't have to know all of the bells and whistles, because again, like, using AI as a coach and a guide, we can get it to tell us exactly what we need to do in each and every tool. So maybe the first couple of times that takes us a little longer, but afterwards, it becomes easier and easier. And I've done this. Like, I've had to go and do really complex things in Cloudflare and in CI/CD pipelines, and I've had AI walk me through all of the different steps that I needed to work on. And there are, a lot of techniques and patterns and strategies for working with AI that I think are important. So now that I have like a bunch of projects under my belt, I have built a sort of a, I don't know if I would call it a guide, really a framework, I guess. And I shouldn't say I'm not taking any credit for it. Like I had AI write it, like 90% of it is AI. But what what it is it kind of goes back, to that list of work experience, right? It's all of these things combined, like all of the things that I saw, here and learned here and here and here, that I've kind of rolled up into this one ball and threw into the AI. And so this is really what I think I'm going to be kind of talking about and working through on this channel and on these streams. I I would like to teach some good practices, and not practices that necessarily set you back, but instead help you be more efficient, help you be more efficient in terms of tokens, help you be more efficient in terms of, losing your code or making sure that, all of your good versions of your code are safe, um, giving you some patterns and things that, you could leverage with AI. I want to, of course, explain my framework a little bit. I I'm not even sure why it's not my framework. It's just a framework, and I think some of you may have your own. Mine is just like this other thing, but there's probably good in all of these frameworks, and it would be nice if we got together and shared some of that knowledge. And so I do have a Discord channel set up. I call it the Control Alt Create Academy. I didn't name it. AI named it, and AI as a collaborator talked me through exactly how to set up Discord. I had no idea how to do that, and it just walked me through all of it. So um, there are, obviously. So anyway, I would love to have people share some of their stories and tools and problems, so we can go in and talk about them on this channel. There are some tools that we need to learn to work with, tools like Git, which really don't have that many commands. You need like 2 or 3 commands under your belt. And if I didn't explain them correctly, AI can walk you through what you need to do in 5 seconds as well. So again, like we can learn those basics, and they'll make a world of difference. So if you're not using them, like they are a lifesaver. And then finally, obviously, like there's a lot of tools out there. We've got Claude, we got Codex, we got Cursor. Um, I would love to talk about those and teach those in more detail. So I will be doing a weekly stream. I don't know if I'm going to do a weekly stream absolutely every week, but I'm going to try to be consistent at it. And I would love to offer, a more formal courses. I would like to make them live, because I think this stuff changes way too rapidly for me to record videos that will go stale in just a few weeks. So by having a live cohort with real people that have real problems that we can try and solve while we're in this course, I think is ideal. And this kind of takes me back to, again, like back to this initial slide. Like I used to go to college on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6:30 to 9:30, and I would teach one class. And then I would go back, and it would be Monday and Wednesday, and again 6:30 to 9:30, and I would teach another class, and I would do that for 4 to 5 weeks, and then repeat. And so I would love to do something like that where it's live and interactive, and low cost. Like I I don't have pricing in mind, but um, I think if I find enough volunteers, the first few would definitely be free. So I would be really excited to do that and refine this whole process, learn from all of you, because I learn while I teach, and so it's not only the techniques and the technology that's important, but also being able to solve different problems, and how we solved them, and what we did about them. So I think it's just kind of grows me as much as it helps you. So definitely something that I'm all in on. And if you want to reach out, it's not no idea if this is a bad move or not, but there's my email address. You can find me on X, and you can find me on LinkedIn. And that is all I had today. So I think I am done at this point, and I hope you've all enjoyed the presentation, and see you in the next one.